Everybody, welcome to Can't Shovel Hurricanes.
Thanks for having us.
I dragged everyone out on a Saturday. All right, look, we're going to hit all kinds of topics. Can't Shovel Hurricanes is about our journey to South Florida. We hit on all kinds of things. We extrapolate some of these things, and we can probably do hours on some of these topics. Guns, taxes, healthcare, immigration, real estate.
People pay taxes?
They pay a lot more taxes in Toronto, and a whole lot more taxes. I could tell you what it's like for me to pay for private school.
Yeah.
It essentially cost me 2-to-1 between the exchange and 51% in tax rate. It cost me 2-to-1. So it's similar to, but I mean, there's so much I can talk about, but I mean, the specifics of how we're all together here is something that is arguably the most important decision that we made when we came down to South Florida. And we knew nothing about it. And it's something that we have a lot of conversations with people that want to move over, and that's education. For us, there was, the research, the walkthroughs, and we had come to South Florida with Zale and Donna Klein as the anchor, pinpoint first decision that we made.
Best decision.
And I'll tell you why it was the best decision on every level, but you actually don't know how important of a decision it is because kids are like little drunken midgets. And I don't know if you're allowed to say that, but they don't lie.
Can't say midget.
They're little drunken people. Okay, sorry. And I apologize if I offended any midgets out there. They don't lie. My kids come home every single day, happy, enthusiastic, excited to go back to school. They love the community. They love the parents, the play dates. And if they didn't, it would be a big problem for us.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I mean, we were somewhat fortunate, and you guys will talk to this and as you introduce yourselves. I know that there's a lot more competition into getting into all kinds of schools, specifically private schools, right? And you guys have probably seen a drastic change, and I want you guys to tell me all about it. But for me, my children are the most important thing in the world. And it's 1 and 1 day with my wife. So in case she's listening, but they're happy. Their souls are fed. And that's because of the structure at Zale. But before we talk just about the education piece, anyone in the room a unicorn? And what I mean by unicorn, somebody born in Florida.
I'm the unicorn in the room.
All right.
I was a unicorn this week.
See?
For Purim.
For Purim. Yeah, 53 years, born in Miami, raised.
You just told everybody you're
Wow.
Okay.
Holy wow.
Sure, you look good for 53.
Thanks, honey. And yeah, I've been here a long time. I love it.
So you were born in Miami, and so your family, were they immigrants to?
My family, my parents were both actually born in New York. My mom grew up in North Carolina. My dad in Chicago. And then they moved to Georgia, met in Atlanta, and moved down here for furniture business they were in.
Wow. Are they still in that business?
Not anymore. Both have passed, and yep, no more.
Wow. Okay. So, and everybody else in the room is a transplant, including me.
Yes.
Including me.
Do you guys remember what it was like moving down here?
I moved here in 8th grade. So yes, I remember that. And I could not wait to go back up north.
Where did you come from?
Pittsburgh.
Okay. Hockey town. All right.
Yeah. Pittsburgh Penguins, remember?
Oh, I remember.
So yeah. So I moved here in 8th grade and I went to high school down here as well. I could not wait to leave Florida. Left Florida for 4 years, met my husband in Pittsburgh. He brought me back down here.
Wait, hold on.
What?
That's correct.
Wait, but did you have any experience in Florida?
Other than coming down on vacation, no.
So you were here, you left, didn't want to come back. He had no idea, and you brought her back down to Florida?
Yeah.
Correct.
Dude, genius.
Dude.
Wow.
Well, my family owned a restaurant in Pittsburgh, and that's what I went to school for. And I knew he was going to sell it. And I tried working at a restaurant or two in Pittsburgh, and it just didn't work. I was front of house.
All right.
Even though I had culinary training, but so I said, if I'm going to have that business, I'm going to Florida.
All right. So I have to actually let the secret out. I don't care about any of this stuff. I want to hear strictly only about barbecue. Now, I posed this entire podcast about what it was like to move, and then I heard you have a food truck, and it's specific to barbecue, and I had to sacrifice a lot of shit coming down here. I had like 7 different barbecues.
Pitmaster come and talk to you too.
Oh man, stop talking dirty. It's not going to end well. We're going to talk about burn ends and how to properly make a brisket. I had to give up I brought my smoker down. I wasn't giving that one up, but like I had 4 or 5 barbecues that I didn't bring down with me because I had to bring all the kids' toys. So I want to hear all about the food truck, but unicorn, transplant, and are you happy with your decision to come back here?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. I have.
What changed?
Well, my parents were here.
Okay.
Then I knew.
When you say here, Boca?
No, Hollywood, Florida.
Okay.
So that's Broward County, south.
How different is Miami or, like, I know that I heard this funny saying, there's 2 things you can see from space, the Great Wall of China and the divide between Broward and Miami-Dade. Mm-hmm. And I don't exactly know what that means, but I've heard it several times. So I'm assuming there's a big divide between the counties and growing. But I was told Boca was a place you came to retire, and I'm using my words very carefully. I don't know why I'm going to start doing that now, but
So I came to Boca and I retired. So
yeah, but I think it was retired and now you're working.
Came back in.
Okay. So I can tell you that. Tell me the difference. Like what's the difference between Palm Beach County and Broward and Miami-Dade?
Stacey, want to handle this one?
Tell me from an education perspective, because you're in the private school sector.
Well, I grew up down in Miami, like south of South Miami.
Did you go to private school or public school?
I went to a Jewish day school.
Okay.
And then went to public school for middle school and back to private school for high school.
What about from an employment perspective? Have you done both?
Yes.
Really?
Public and private.
Talk dirty to me. Tell me the difference.
That's what I always tell her.
Right? How's it working?
I don't know.
Well, I'm about to.
Right.
I taught elementary education in public in Broward County. And then after I had children, came to Zale, started working after my children started attending school there.
Okay.
And never left.
I hear a lot of that.
I love it there.
There's a lot of parents.
You love it where?
Zale.
Oh.
There's a lot of parents that teach and their kids both go to Donna Klein and Zale. And let me clarify for the listeners, one of the reasons we love the school, before we didn't know enough about the education, and we're grateful for it, because it really is what we can hang our hat on as parents, because there's so many challenges that we have. And if our kids hated school, hated everything about it, I don't know if we can actually overcome that one. And you guys have made that very easy for us. Thankfully, you guys are sincere. But the other thing is that when you drive into Zale, Donna Klein, you're in a gated, armed guard sort of school community. Mm-hmm. And when you talk to people, and I know that this was a lot of the conversations that we had about moving down here, they're like, how can you go to Florida? There are so many guns. And then they refer to Parkland and
Were they talking Florida specifically or America?
No, Florida. And
I don't think there's any more guns here than a lot of places in America.
Well, if you talk to New Yorker, this is like, the
Wild West.
Yeah. Right. And then
you talk to people from Texas.
We were making this mental transition. And originally I wanted to go to Texas because from the real estate perspective, I saw way more opportunity and grossly undervalued real estate there and potential because it was growing in such an alarming rate, and it's positive. And I was telling Francis, I'm like, I really wanted you to look at this. She wasn't on board on the move yet. Mm-hmm. And that same time the Uvalde shooting happened. And I remember Francis says, no fucking way are we doing this. Let's go to Florida. I'm like, okay. I didn't say anything about it's just as many guns, right? She just included because that was in the moment, right? And that's a tragedy that, that words will ever be able to describe. But, and then she said, if we're going to do this, I might as well have a beach. But the point is that when you walk into Zale, there are armed guards. There are armed guards at the door. There are armed guards at the gate.
You like that.
Security.
I love it. I love it. In fact, I wanted it and petitioned for it in Toronto. My kid's school, you can come and go. There's no gated communities in Toronto. There isn't. It's much more cookie cutter. Canadians are sheep, and I don't mean necessarily that's a bad thing. There's pros and cons to both. It's like a steady as she goes and accept things as they are. But anti-Semitism specifically in Toronto is veiled under, at the moment, it's under the Palestinian cause. So there's other ways, the BDS movement, things like that. And our kids are super exposed. You have a security guard, if that, at the schools with a baton. And there are extreme gun restrictions in Toronto. But what's happening now is that it seems to be that the bad guys are getting the guns and the ones that are responsible or having trouble have access.
That's how it always is.
Yeah, well,
so was there not a lot of gun violence in Toronto?
It's on a very exponentially climbing trend at the moment, from what I've been hearing. But Toronto is an extremely safe city for the most part. I mean, you don't hear much about gun violence, but I also noticing what happened with COVID and how media suppressed things. I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of stuff doesn't make the news as much, because it doesn't, toe the party line. And I cannot stand our government. And I say our government, the Canadian government, for so many ways. And it's part of like this entire plethora of reasons of why we chose to leave. When people ask us why you wanted to leave, it's hard to start. I mean, it was just a mishmash. It was like a borscht of.
Did you know you wanted to go somewhere that had a big Jewish community?
Absolutely. That's exactly what we did. We Googled it, spoke to people, and then found a school that was as similar to what my kids went to in Thornhill. And that's how we came here. And then we had a really amazing tour at Donna Klein. You guys were waitlisted at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a tour.
You were waitlisted?
Yeah. And it's got to be. So tell me, what's the situation like now after COVID, and what was it like during COVID?
Oh, wait, we're going back to COVID, or are we going now?
Talk COVID, because COVID's still a topic. It's what lit the fuse for us to move.
3 years ago, almost to the day.
COVID PTSD.
Yeah.
There are COVIDians running around Toronto.
That's how I feel.
That's how we feel
when we talk about it.
COVID PTSD. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We sat in an office by ourselves.
I don't feel that at all. Do you?
Because when COVID started, I was still partners in an insurance agency, and we were essential, and we never shut down, and we just worked. I basically worked through the entire pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you didn't feel it?
I was walking around like nothing was going on, because we were business as usual. Actually, 10 times busier.
And we were running a school through Zoom.
For how long?
Too long.
What's too long?
March 13th of 2020 is when we closed.
Yeah.
And everyone thought we were going back like in 2 weeks.
Right.
So that lasted. We went back in person of September of 2020. So we never had camp that summer. And
so a whole 6 months?
Yeah.
That was a crazy 6 months.
2 years.
Yeah.
2 years in Canada.
2 years in Canada.
2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'll tell you now, it's the tail wagging the dog. It's the minority that's dictating terms, because people are so anxious. And then there's a lot of people that have found a way to hang their hat on COVID. It's become extremely convenient to do certain things or not do certain things because of COVID. But when it came to education and kids, I'll tell you that I don't want to know your stance on vaccines. Quite frankly, I don't care. I don't think they're vaccines. I think they're therapeutics. I am not an expert. I don't have any medical expertise. I'm just looking at common sense. And I remember when I was a kid and there was a kid beside me that had chicken pox. My parents made me stand next to that kid. Go get chicken pox. There's your vaccine, right? And I got all the standard vaccines. So my kids have at this point had COVID at least 3 times that I know of. Got through it. But in my kids' school one day, they decided to have a vaccine clinic where they were vaccinating in school. I pulled them. I couldn't believe. And at that point,
optional, obviously.
No, at the time it was,
Canada.
But it was pushed in a way that like, there were so many things that you now restrictively could not do unless you showed proof of vaccine. Not for kids yet, but it was starting to really become a thing. My eldest daughter was doing gymnastics in one of those face diapers. I think you guys also held on to the masking much longer than anybody else should. And I'm sure you got backlash from a lot of parents who moved down here for that. But, we can touch on that topic. But from my perspective, they were telling us effective this and this date. If you do not show up-to-date vaccinations, meaning at least 2, your daughter can't. And at the time she was 6, can't participate in gymnastics.
Did you guys make people show proof of vaccination to come back to school?
No, not children, but adults in order to be guests in our school. Yes, everybody.
When we started welcoming families back in.
And what do you think was that?
For the kids.
Right.
It was about the kids.
Because kids didn't have they didn't have a choice to have a vaccine.
Oh, right.
So then we had to do everything to think that we were protecting everybody. So it wasn't just
in hindsight. Do you think the vaccines were a good idea?
For people?
For anyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe in science.
Okay. We got versions of science that
must
changes.
Have been another positive about moving here is that like COVID, even at the height of COVID, didn't even feel like there was COVID here.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
Let me break this up. Frances is as you guys know, in the autism and behavioral space. And she had built her business over 10 years and she was an independent that grew. And she had at the time about 15 therapists. It was not deemed essential and it collapsed in and itself on March 2020. That same time, I had opened up a fitness studio and I owned a couple of locations. I was just about to open one up. Closed, shut down. Now, the hypocrisy that came shortly thereafter was like, you could have gone to a Raptor game or a Leaf game and stood shoulder to shoulder after the bubbling in one of these face diapers. And that was okay. You could have gone to Costco. That was okay. You could have gone to a show. That was okay. So they picked and choose who gets to survive, what small businesses get to survive, how they get to survive. And then they were handing out $2,000 for people to stay at home. So when they did open at the studio with restrictions, I couldn't get staff back because it just wasn't worth it for it. And plus, everybody was scared. I get it. Why would you risk it if you're getting paid not to work? You know what I mean? Right.
The same problem here.
Yeah, we had the same problem.
Yeah.
As we hired staff back, right 2 weeks before school opened with only 65 kids.
How many kids do you have now?
220.
Wow. What's the capacity?
Baby and Me program.
What's the capacity?
Zale.
Capacity? We're at 260?
Wow.
270?
What's your wait list like?
We've got a wait list.
Yeah.
We could fill classes. We have no teachers to hire.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you actually have the facilities, you just don't have the staff.
Well, actually,
well,
we're scaling down.
We need more space too.
We do need
more
space.
staff. Yeah.
Talk to me about the philosophy of Zale as a private school.
Go ahead.
No, you go, Miss Stacey.
You guys want to fight over it?
We do.
Forget it. You know what? Let's talk barbecue.
There you go.
No, you know what? I want to know what it was like having a business during COVID.
Our business was a health insurance agency, which was tremendously a big part of COVID. Our business was insanely busy. And
why'd you leave?
After doing that for a couple of years, I was actually fed up with the insurance business anyway. Didn't like the way it was heading. And after doing it for 18 years?
I don't know.
I think 17 or 18 years.
Somebody made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Oh, is that right?
And it wasn't me.
My partner and I got a valuation of our company, and I was happy with it, and he wasn't, which turned out to be he was right. But either way, he bought me out all on good terms, and I retired. And
then you decided to go back to work.
Then I decided to go into the food service business
because it's a passion.
Food truck.
Yeah, it's a passion.
So what's the best seller in the food truck? What's the food truck
brisket.
name?
Mr. Lee, Mistah.
Okay.
Lee's Smoking Good Barbecue.
All right. And where could you be found?
We operate out of our commissary kitchen out in East Delray, 600 North Congress Avenue. Generally, we try to open for lunch for deliveries and pickups Thursday through Saturday, Sunday. But with our truck being booked, our truck is being booked 4 to 5 nights a week now.
Wow.
We've have not opened up in the kitchen because we're selling out Like I live over in a community in West Boca, and we sold, it was our busiest night we ever had last night.
Can I tell you?
Yeah.
When Adele told me about barbecue,
Yep.
I swear, like everything in my whole like affect changed because I have so many questions I want to ask and I want to talk. I want to hang out with you.
You really need to talk to my pitmaster, Lee.
All right,
My
fine.
My partner, Lee.
I could tell you that first of all, we're going to be holding a number of events for Francis and for myself, for my real estate business. We'd love to have the food truck come out. But when it comes to businesses like that, I mean, for me, if money was no object and I didn't have to worry about raising my kids, it's exactly the space I'd love to be in, because in Toronto, like I said, multiple barbecues, but our house was like an assembly line for food. It was the best. And we also had to sneak people in, by the way.
Well, wait, I think he's looking for some staff. So if you want to ever go and work with him, go for it.
I will be.
We're actually building a physical restaurant right now.
Oh, look, my wife would kill me because food business is one of these businesses you get married to, right? Like you have to be there all the time.
Well, I work Monday through Friday. So this is the good thing. Mark and I have been married 32 years.
Wow, 32.
Secret is I work. I work Monday through Friday. I work Monday through Friday, and Mark works Thursday through Sunday. So he took off today to be here.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, my truck, they're actually have an event tonight, but I came here instead.
What's the most famous person you served?
Me.
Billy.
I can tell you that I served in my house actually last week. Gloria Gaynor ate barbecue in my house.
I wanted to let you know that she told me a couple of days ago. I just wanted to know if that was the most famous person.
The Marley and the Whalers. We were down at
Rohan, wasn't it?
Whatchamacallit? Art Basel.
Oh, yeah.
And
I have no idea where places are. You could say it.
So
I'll look it up on Waze.
My truck was at Art Basel down in Miami, and my pitmaster and partner Lee, they were down there for 3 days, and they fed all the reggae bands.
It's amazing.
And I think the last night was the Marleys. They actually came onto the truck, and it was fantastic. They said,
"Wow, dude, are you bringing samples ever?"
I don't have any with me, but I can always get some.
I assure you, you'll be hearing from us. No, because it's something that we need to do, we want to do, and barbecue to us. Like hosting, that's one of the things I think we miss the most. Leaving the situation that we had where we had a live-in nanny, we had grandparents on 10 minutes drive from each side. We have very supportive families. The hardest thing to leave is a support network. And now like we don't have anything, and we would host and have people coming through all the time. And I'd love to barbecue. It wasn't my thing. I mean, I got pretty good at it. I mean, it wasn't restaurant quality, but nobody ever complained. Maybe it was the free food. I don't know. Fuck it. I mean, I still enjoyed having people over, and we did it all the time. But when you come here, you don't realize how much of that stuff you miss. Today was a typical immigrant day for me. I had 3 listing presentations. I was out in all kinds of places throughout South Florida. I don't know where anything is, right? I've got the real estate really starting to tick because a lot of Canadians are asking me, how can I buy a place here, or can I Airbnb here?
How do they find you?
Most of the people that know me, like my phone line, my Canadian phone line, it goes to this phone, my American one, but my real estate team still works in Toronto. It's a very scalable system, and it's called Fishman & Nicosia. My brother also runs my personal database. So everyone that's known me calls me directly. Anyone else has a work line that's recorded and it goes through our client relationship management system. But it's become this word of mouth thing where like, I had a lot of trouble with real estate here, meaning I had an unpleasant experience, to say the least, in buying our property and dealing with stuff after with the property. And when I started the journey and I started reaching out to people, and I've got a vast real estate experience managing agents and dealing with them, and I couldn't get realtors on the phone. In the peak of the market, they were doing me favors by calling me. Mm-hmm. Back. I'm like, what? Really? Mm-hmm. Really? I'm calling you direct on your listing and you can't call me back. And here is the wildest thing. I've never seen this. I don't know if the COVID phenomenon, but whatever I was looking at, whatever the value of the real estate, they're like, show it to me in liquidity. I want to see to see the property. So That if the house was worth $1 million, they're like, show me $1 million in liquid assets to see the property.
That's crazy.
That's
Just to
crazy.
see.
That's crazy.
And then my realtor totally fucked up. And I only realized after the fact, boy, what a learning experience that was. The realtor that listed, that owned the house and listed the house was the owner and also knew it, really played my realtor like a fiddle. Good for them. But the realtor that I used and I put in an escalation clause whereby I would match or beat the next best offer by $5,000. Now going through the courses and the experience, I know I was allowed to see the competing offer. If you have an escalation clause, you're allowed to see the other offer. So you're not, overbidding.
Right.
But the way it was set up is like, this is the offer you need to put it on paper. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have done that because I don't know how much I overbid by.
Did you come down and see it?
After the fact, when I already bought it.
Right.
And I was interviewed for hours.
People are doing that now.
I was interviewed for
How'd
hours.
you look at the house? Just somebody went through on like FaceTime or something?
I saw the pictures. It met a lot of criteria of what we wanted. It needed to be near Zale, and it's very close to Zale. It needed to be in a gated community. We needed 5 bedrooms because we knew it was going to be transient. We needed an office and because a lot of families coming by all the time. We wanted a pool. We were going to put one in and south facing and facing a lake. I know it sounds snobby. I'm grateful and fortunate to be able to get to something like that. And we love every aspect of our community and the house. And there really is communities here. It's on 441 in Palmetto. Look at me. I sound like I know where I live.
You do.
Look, all Lexington Estates. That's right. I know. It's like 20 minutes drive from here. That's the things that you get in the first couple of months. You don't know where anything is.
North, south, east, west.
Yeah. Ask Francis north, south, east, west. No.
It's pretty easy to get around.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, but I mean, we encountered things so quickly that we didn't know. Like we were taken by an unscrupulous air conditioning guy. We just moved here 3 weeks in.
We have a good guy for you.
Thank you. AC craps out. Luckily we had 3 kids with a fever. We just got here. They all had COVID, right? No AC. He says to me, and I looked him up through one of these pages. And I don't want to, get specific on culture, but I can imitate the accent pretty good. He says, you pay me up front in full and I'll get you an air conditioner tomorrow because everything is backlogged. And a day passed and 2 days passed and 3 days passed and 4 days passed and 5 days passed and so on and so forth.
So wait, you paid him first?
Yeah.
Oh.
He says, listen, I get you air conditioner tomorrow. I promise a backlog, but for you do favor, you bring it tomorrow. We take care of it. No problem. And yeah.
This was in August
This was in August.
in Florida.
Yeah, it was lovely.
And you're still waiting for your air conditioner?
No, it's there. And it happened and he did the job and he got it, but I think it was because I was actually losing my mind. And in that time, my kids just arrived. We went through so much. Like you have this look about you that you don't realize until you see other people who have just immigrated. And it's like, it's this weird fear because if I don't know where to go, can I go to a hospital? We had traveler's insurance and we weren't eligible for other insurances and we didn't even know where the hospitals were. Like little things we didn't know, right?
3 minutes from your house.
Yeah, but we didn't know we didn't know whether we can use that.
Yeah.
Right. And to be honest with you, I mean, everything goes by Google. We had the same thing happen where we're now part of a health network and we needed to use aftercare or urgent care. Mm-hmm. Aftercare is you guys. Urgent care. And we rolled up to something that was part of our network because I was on the website and they're like, no, you're not.
We need to come up with a manual, right?
No, you guys
to give to new families.
I think you had one.
You have no idea the amount of weight that you guys have on your shoulders just by being able to manage the kids.
Yeah.
Because if every child is different and everyone's needs is different and you guys go out of your way to cater to the kid where they're at. Right.
Yes.
And that's what it seems like, at least from my perspective. Right.
Yes.
And I have 3 kids and I have 2 at Zale and they're different. Right. They have different needs. Right.
Very different.
Right. And if I didn't have that to hang my hat on, we'd be fucked. We'd actually have to go back. I don't think we could survive.
You know what? That's pretty funny because another family that just moved here from, I want to say Chicago, was going to do the same thing until they came to our school and said the same thing. It wasn't until they came to Zale and their child was able to go and start socializing. This is a 2-year-old. They started socializing and we helped that child grow. And the parents felt like, wow, okay, we can stay now because they were scared.
We were,
yeah.
we took our kids from a nanny that they knew since they were born, grandparents that were there every single weekend. And I'm talking about every single weekend. And we were like, our family's small, but super tight. And we just like ripped them apart. And then the other thing that we think as parents, they don't realize the stress we're going through and the things that we're going through. And we think we hide it from them, but our aura, our energy, our vibe, our conversation, our tone, they feel it and they could feel it on us. Mm-hmm. I, as a parent, had several very moments that I'm certainly not proud of because I just lost my shit. Now, I'm not talking about hitting my kids. God forbid. No. I don't mean like I just,
yourself.
I just couldn't, like, they were being kids and they weren't listening and we were driving to a movie theater and my mind is like, oh my God, I need to transfer more money. And this is what's happening. What are we doing with our businesses? We shouldn't be doing like these extracurricular things. We don't know what to do. School hasn't started. And then the kids are being kids in the car. And I literally U-turned in the middle of the road and I was like, that's it. We're going home. And I think I scared my kids till death. Like Kobe, my son, is the most sensitive of my kids. And he, like, to this day, he's like, Abba, don't scream. Don't say anything. And I feel like shit as a parent. But I also find that the parents that are the hardest on themselves are the ones that are doing the best. They just don't know it yet. And because they're trying to correct all the time. Right.
And that's great. And I have to say that your children are pretty amazing. Yeah. I mean, they really are.
Thank you. I'm not a crier. And I'll tell you that we've had a couple of times where we've picked our kids up and we've heard feedback. And we've come home and Francis, like one of us or the other ones or both of us, and we'll have a good cry about it. We're like, we're doing a pretty good job. We're doing our best, but we can't get it perfect, right? I mean, our parents gave us everything. We didn't need to make this move. We wanted to make this move. This was a choice. My parents fled from the former Soviet Union way back when because they didn't have a fucking choice. Right. As Jews, they had to run, right? My grandparents had to run from other things. And I'm sure a lot of people here had the same sort of, background. We did this by choice. And this is where people thought we lost our minds. What are you doing? Right. Best decision we've ever made.
That's what I was going to ask you. You're happy with your decision?
Yeah. Look,
you can't shovel hurricanes.
You can't shovel hurricanes. I'm afraid to say that sometimes. I'm afraid to say that we're enjoying this and because I'm the kind of person that thinks the bottom will fall out and something bad will happen. Right. I'm working on it. My wife is way more spiritual. And
I was going to say, you're married to Francis.
Right. Yeah. And that's the best. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And just don't tell her that she could have done way better than me. But I mean,
she knows.
She knows. She thought I had a lot of money. I mean, whatever. It's too late now. Right. But we didn't have to make this move. And we made this move. And we had also had this debate, which a lot of parents have, about private school versus public school, only because of finances, which is a major, major, major thing, right?
I don't know how parents do this.
I don't either. I mean,
anymore.
Yeah. They have scholarships, though, I have to say. Like, and everyone, like when I started my child at Zale, and that's how I fell in love with Zale, is when our child started there. And at that time, Parker went there when he was 3. And my girlfriend, Karen, said, Adele, you can do this. You can afford it. There's scholarships. So guess what? 22 years ago, I had to get a scholarship for my son to.
So the only thing we were eligible for them was something called VPK, which I still don't understand.
Oh, well.
Can somebody explain VPK to me? And I really want to know what your take is on the difference between public school and private school.
Okay.
VPK is something that every child in Florida is entitled to for funds to be a part of a pre-K program that's a provider for the state. So
the provider needs to be
we're a provider.
Yes, you are.
Zale is a provider. Most of the Jewish schools in our area, we are all providers. And parents get $2,500 in change back a year. So it comes off payment.
Right.
And that's pretty much for VPK.
That's it.
We're not eligible for anything else. And then the primary reason for that is the kids don't have a social, because the type of visa we're on is called an E2 visa, and only Francis and I are allowed to work, and we're not allowed to be employees where we can start our own businesses. And I'm not a lawyer, and I'm going to have my immigration lawyer here. He's on vacation. He's a great guy. He's actually from Toronto as well. Right. He made the pilgrimage about 8 years ago. He had the foresight to realize that Canada's too fucked up to stay. And there's an overwhelming theme, by the way, of the kind of people. I mean, I want you guys to tell me that are moving from LA, from New York, from Toronto, from Montreal. I mean, I see a lot of young families, professionals that are established and getting reestablished and willing to do it all over again, because fundamentally something felt off in Canada.
Yeah.
Would you guys say that's true? There's a lot of young, like the same demographic.
Yeah. So that's why, hence we're on a wait list already for the school year. We're already full for camp, and we're full for the next school year because we have an influx of families.
I know my daughter Jojo is on a wait list for camp. I just don't want to know.
We had a few calls just Friday. Yesterday. 2 people who haven't even found a house, but they need to find a school first.
Right. That's what we did. We wouldn't have bought a house if we didn't find the school.
Right.
If we didn't have a home for our kids, we're not going to have a home in Florida. Like, I mean, the education piece, you guys are with them more than I am. Thank God.
We are 7:30 to 6.
Did you buy the house so that you knew you had to commit? Because you could have come down here and rented.
That's
for
a great
year.
question. Yeah. So rental rates are fucked. It didn't make sense at the time for a comparable house in way worse condition. At that time was for about $7,500 a month. And I'm like, crazy. I am not paying nearly $100,000 in rent to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And we looked for a house that had very little to no restrictions, that if things didn't work out, didn't pan out, we got a place we could stay, a place we can rent out. It's positive cash flow all day, right? That's the way the market is now. And it's still, that trend is continuing, because it's like, I don't know whether it was a political move on DeSantis's part, maybe pure luck, but he saw an opportunity, I think, and people didn't think of Florida in the way they think about it now, hence this podcast. Like, people thought it was a place that was too hot, too old, too many guns, and spring breakers. Like, that was kind of, and by the way, in the Canadian perspective vis-a-vis COVID, we were told that like people are dying in the streets here from COVID, and it was just like a cesspool and there's no oversight and blah, blah, blah. Complete bullshit, right? Because that was Canadian media, just brainwashing.
Stay there.
And once they started talking about kids, the entire media changed towards kids. And do you guys remember having to get vaccinated so I could protect you and you and you and you, because it stops the spread following the science? Bullshit, right? It never really happened. Just saying.
Do I remember that?
Yeah.
Let me go back.
Do you remember that science?
I do.
I don't want to press you on the
Don't go
COVID.
back. We're going forward.
We're going forward.
Yeah. We're definitely going
Don't
forward,
look back.
right? I
Go
think there's a lot that could be learned from all this, right? I mean, so now you guys have older kids. Do you want them to stay in South Florida? Do you want them to stay in Boca?
Well, my son's working at my insurance agency that I left, so he's happy there, and he has an apartment in East LA, which is great. My daughter's in New York, and yeah, I'd love to have her back, but I don't think she won't be back.
I don't want her back.
No, why?
I want her to go explore, live, go where she needs to go.
She's a beach girl, though.
Is South Florida safe?
Yes.
So why do you need people with armed guards at the doors going to school?
I didn't.
Can I tell you?
You did.
Zale was like that when my son went there. That was 22 years ago.
Wow.
Except we didn't have gates.
Oh, well, there you go.
We didn't lock the doors.
Oh, yeah.
It's different now.
Yeah.
It's the better safe than sorry theory. I don't think you need them.
Listen, I think our campus, that's the one thing we come in and parents come in and mention after meeting us at the front doors for a tour.
Yeah.
Like how they went through the gate, they went through the door, they can't get through there. Every door is locked,
Right.
like you
They don't have
could
to
not
worry
be
about
in
it.
this.
But
Such a
violence
thing.
on other places could be more random versus places like theirs, which are targeted. I think there's a
Correct.
difference.
Anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Right. I don't know why.
Period. End of story. I mean, that's it.
No. Look, that's, yeah. I have found that there, I don't know, these bleeding heart Jews that I've met lately that are afraid to talk about anti-Semitism because it's not in the woke culture. And here you can start, you can speak to things that you have an opinion about without having some sort of backlash from the minority about things that you have an opinion on. I can respect other people's opinion, but there is zero margin of error when it comes to my safety, my children's safety. And anti-Semitism is racism, just, veiled, or for some reason has been accepted around the world. And it's not something that, I will allow.
I don't know that it's accepted.
I think that there's a lot of people. I think let's put it this way. If we lined up a bunch of anti-Semites, okay, and then a bunch of anti-anyone else's, right? I think no one will really give a shit from a public media perspective, or not, they won't give a shit. It won't have as much of a platform if I went out and said something about someone who's transgender, for example, right now, which is a hot topic, right? The words that Kanye said, yeah, he got backlash for it, rightfully so. But if it was somebody who had his platform saying the inverse, it would be chaos out there. And it should be chaos. It's just, in my opinion, anti-Semitism. It's like, it was an American politician, and I don't watch much news anymore, thank God. I don't have the time since we got here. And he explained this beautifully. He said, when I was a kid, we used to, and he's in the 70s. He said something to the effect of, we used to play with frogs. So if you boil a pot of water and you throw a frog in it, it'll jump right out. But if you put a frog in a bottle, in a pot of cold water, and you slowly turn up the heat, it would eventually cook to death. This is how I feel anti-Semitism has gone. It's been this slow progress to see how far you can push it. And then people are pushing the envelope and then stepping back when they're getting a bit of backlash, and then pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope. And that's how I feel that it's happening right now. I think that it's something that is terrifying to me, but I'm not walking around scared. I just mean we send our kids to a Jewish school. We spend a lot of money, and it's a difficult thing for security and for the Yiddishkeit, right? Mm-hmm. How would you compare the Jewish private school system, from your perspective, to the public school system? And would you send your kids to private school or public school?
I think we're so lucky in Boca because we have great public schools. Mm-hmm. So both of my children.
Is there a lottery? Somebody told me something about a lottery now. Is there also way more applicants than there are spaces?
I think the lottery they're talking about for elementary school.
Yeah, that I heard.
Choice schools.
Choice schools.
What does that mean?
Which are?
So Don Estridge, there's different schools that have different programs. Don Estridge has a technology. There's different choice schools. There's Dreyfus for the performing arts.
Murakami, Mandarin.
Murakami I've heard of.
Gomlin.
My kids went to Murakami.
And it's a lottery, right? To get in?
The choice.
And once you're in, do you have to re-enter the lottery every year?
No.
You're in. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why is there a lottery if it's a public school?
It's a public school with
they offer Mandarin. They offer
specialty.
It's an international baccalaureate school. I just said that.
If you live in the zone of Murakami, do you still have to enter the lottery?
Yeah.
No, there is no
zone, but we lived close by, and they said that if you live close by, you have a better chance of getting in.
So it's some sort of weighted average or something like that.
Maybe.
I find that baffling. Would you say that the public school systems are better within different counties in South Florida? Would you say
Yes.
Miami-Dade versus Palm Beach?
Yes.
And why is there such a difference?
So it goes back. I used to be in the public realm, and I taught in East Lake Worth. So it was
East Lake Worth. Okay.
East Lake Worth. And the children that came there, their needs weren't being met at home. So therefore, if their needs aren't being met at home, how is it how's an educator supposed to teach them if they're coming to school hungry and not having the proper care at home? Right. So in that sense, and also the resources are different at the schools, or they were when I was in the public school system teaching.
Has that changed?
Probably not. That's something that I've been in the private realm. I've been in early childhood education for over 20 years now. I left the public realm.
Now, I'm sure there isn't one thing, or if there is, but what would you say is like I said, it's expensive, but to me, it's an investment. Mm-hmm. And I hope to always be able to make it. What would you say the major difference is between public to private? Like, why would you spend all this extra money?
I think private school has smaller classes, more staff. But you know what?
What does that
All in
translate
all,
to?
I say it doesn't matter if you go to public or private. It's who's standing in front of your kid. So
Is there more scrutiny on the private side? Is it harder or is it easier? Are public school teachers underpaid, which I believe they are in Toronto?
All teachers are underpaid, but
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that it's an interesting dynamic with that profession where you put the most valuable thing in their hands, and yet I don't think they get paid enough. But that my perspective on things, and I have my sister-in-law is a principal in a middle school in Toronto, and I get it. I understand. From that perspective, I think educators should be paid a lot more. I think private school educators have a different task, because I think the expectations from the parents are higher. The scrutiny is probably higher.
yes,
Because you're paying for it, right?
Your expectations, since you are paying for a school for your child, you have different expectations. But I also am an advocate, though, of public schools, because my children did go to a public school as well. So,
did you go to
I
public?
went to public school.
And you went to public school in Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
you came out all right.
I came out just fine.
Well, let's ask his wife.
yeah, he did.
Did you guys? You moved down here about 25 years ago, right?
Yes.
Do you remember that move?
Yeah.
Was it traumatic?
No,
No.
it's exciting.
Why'd you do it?
I mean, I didn't have kids. I was with my girlfriend at the time, and my parents were here. I was in LA and I wanted warm weather still. And so I moved here.
So, do you mind me asking how long ago that was? You said 25 years?
1996.
Oh, okay. Because
so 27 years.
Okay.
ago.
Because if outside of like Canada and New York, I'd say New York is quite similar to the way things are in Canada. There is a major influx of families coming from California, correct?
Yes,
Mhm.
Yes.
Right. And what would you say the number one thing is that they're talking about of why they moved?
Cheaper housing,
Okay. Okay.
right?
Yeah,
Big
that'll
thing,
make a
I
big
think.
difference. for
Cost
sure.
of living.
So I see that. Cheaper housing I get coming.
yeah.
but
I don't know. 'Cause I don't
day-to-day
really know.
expenses are
State taxes.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah, that's a big one. I see from what I've been hearing, California has changed drastically in the way they approached COVID, crime and stuff like that.
I was going to say the crime part is what I heard. And then it's like that some parts are really just more sketchy, and there's legal marijuana that's around and about. So that
Nothing wrong with marijuana.
Wait, what
but
did you
this
just
is
say?
what
What about
families
marijuana?
are saying that as well.
I've been told it's okay.
I'm just saying, this is what I'm hearing.
What did Clinton say? I smoked, but I didn't inhale. Something like that. Anyway,
So my dad-
here's something I wanted to put out there that I definitely want to hear your take. If you're not comfortable talking about it, I get it. And it's definitely in the education space, and this movement towards
I know where he's going.
Yeah,
I'm afraid.
because I know what's
the
happening in
question?
Canada right now, and it's terrifying.
What were you going to say?
Like this, I don't know how to define it, but it's the LGBTQ, like the education for children. And what's the age groups that you guys are teaching? Just so
We have
we're
preschool, so we have babies through 4 and 5 year olds.
Has that at all
Never.
been an issue?
No.
Okay. So, because it's
I've
becoming,
heard it's starting to become something in elementary school.
yeah, and I know that in Canada it's become a really hot topic, and I as a parent don't know how to speak to it, because I never thought I'd ever have to speak to it, and I hope that I never have to speak to it, and not because I don't respect it, and because people all of a sudden, if they have an opinion that's contrary to the woke, whatever you want to call it, minority, then you're somehow a racist or a bigot or whatever, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Agree.
I think that it part and parcel with some sort of mental health issues, and should and must be addressed in some ways, I think, but I don't think that it needs to be taught to a child that's really, really young. And I want to be able to teach my kids to love and respect and understand and support everyone, regardless of what their beliefs are. Hate is hate, regardless in which way it's veiled. Right. I don't agree with it in any light, but I also don't want to have to explain to my 4-year-old why the other 4-year-old decided that they're going to go to the girls' bathroom versus the boys' bathroom. And I just had this conversation with a very close friend of mine in Toronto, and I don't want to butcher the facts, so I won't get to it specifically, but I think there's something in Toronto that if you don't address this right away, you could be charged criminally as a parent.
Wow.
I again, that I'm not speaking to from experience, is just
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's beyond crazy, but I there is so much more that I'm more comfortable to say and talk about here in Florida than I am in Toronto. And not because I'm afraid of saying things. It's because
it's just more conservative there.
No, it's a liberal government. It's a liberal minority, but what's happened in COVID is it's given a platform to the people that are anxious, and you can see it in the movement. You can see it, how many people are coming to states like Florida, right? That's not by accident. They're uprooting lives. They're uprooting businesses. They're taking their families. They're separating families because something intuitively doesn't feel right. And they're willing to do this move because of all of these topics that have all kind of meshed in together at the same time. And you look at things like this particular issue that we're talking about. I mean, I don't know how to address it as a child. As a parent to a child, I hope that I never had to. But in Canada, for example, I remember distinctly having this conversation with one of the parents as I'm sending my kid off into class. I told him to take his mask off. She's like, no, leave the mask back on. And I said, why? She goes, well, if it gives another 1% chance that it gets them more safe, then I'm okay with them. Like, if you're that scared, stay home. Mm-hmm. Stay home. Because by the end of the day, I brought my kid home and that mask was disgusting. It was way worse. I might as well have given him a cigarette. Mm-hmm. Okay. And not only that, it started scaring the kids. Like, they didn't understand why they needed to be masked everywhere, to the point where if they didn't get masked, they're like, no, Abba, I need to put a mask back on. I'm like, no, you don't. You're outside. Go play. Mm-hmm. And I was a crazy COVIDian at first. I locked everybody in. Everybody thought I lost my mind. Right. So whatever, we all have perspective, but what was happening is this underground community of people who were starting to realize something was off, and they're having these conversations amongst each other. And these groups that I was a part of on Facebook about moving to South Florida, moving to states in the United States, they were growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And it's because everybody was afraid to say what they were actually thinking and feeling, whereby there was an overwhelming majority of people thinking the same thing. Mm-hmm. And the minority was like, no, the things that I still hear specific to COVID is wild.
Like?
Well, there's a private Jewish school in Canada, and I have to be careful in how I frame this. They had said that one of the parents, who's a physician on the board of the school, was saying, we have to get all the boosters in on all the kids, and the reason COVID is still around is because they haven't been boosted. A statement like that has zero science to it, makes no sense to the individual, like the everyday person. But to the people that are anxious, they're like, oh my God, everybody, mask back up and bubble. And like, it's crazy. It beyond crazy, right? I'm scared of COVID in the aspect that we don't know what the long-term effects are. I'm scared of lots of things but the difference between Florida and other places specific is that you guys had a choice. We didn't have a choice. And I really think it's because everybody walks around here with guns. I'm serious.
You think there's a direct correlation?
I guarantee there would be. Americans, first of all, are a lot more, warm-blooded, I guess. They'll fight for what they think is right, especially if it impacts their day-to-day lives. Like, outside of some of the real estate businesses exploded, but there's other things that imploded. Mm-hmm. And I had situations where like my father passed a couple of months before our first lockdown, and I would have had to make a choice between seeing my dad and seeing my kids. And that's an impossible decision to make. We had to sneak people into our house. Did you guys have to do that?
No.
We weren't allowed to have friends over for over a year.
Watch to see if you did.
Your neighbors would rat you out.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Don't you remember there was a time they said you couldn't have a gathering of more than
That's the
more
one.
than 6 people.
Right. And as that happened, one of our politicians got caught, doing that. Our prime minister was being seen unmasked in multiple locations, in locations that you didn't need to be masked. So it was okay. The science worked in Europe, but it didn't work in Canada. It didn't make any sense. But what does make sense to me is that I'm extremely grateful to be here. I'm extremely grateful to be around you guys. I'm extremely grateful for the fact that you guys took the time to chit chat, hit a lot of topics that, are sore spots. And the fact that my kids are happy and taken care of when we're not there for them, and you guys are our extended family. It's something that other parents that are listening to this, or people that are listening to this has been a part of our journey that if without this, we would fail and we would already be back. Okay. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. And
thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
You guys are awesome. Let's go have some drinks.